Hello my dears, this is Sarah from SheHoldsDearly.com, and today I'm going to share with you my favorite bread recipe straight from our farmhouse. So I made this last week and I posted it quickly on my Instagram stories and people were so excited and they're like, give us your recipe! And I thought that was a great idea. This is a bread recipe that I've been using for years. I've tried a lot of them. A lot of them are very intimidating. They're very time intensive. And so this one is super simple and kind of fail proof. So this is a great one to start out with. Actually, this is a great one to just use all the time. That's what we do. I'm gonna show you a natural version with honey and then a sugar-free version, which I like to use for myself. First of all, we need to talk about flour a little bit. So you can use whole wheat flour, you can use white flour for this, use whatever you have. I personally love to grind my own wheat, and that sounds super hard and intimidating maybe, but all I do is I pour wheat grains into a grinder. It runs for 10 to 15 minutes and then I get flour that I work with. And then I'm at the level that I used to be at where I was using flour. So I get my grains, I like soft white wheat berries. This is what you are looking for. There's hard wheat, there's red wheat. You want soft white, that's what you're looking for. I like to buy my wheat in 50-pound bags and I'll pay less than $1 a pound, sometimes like 50 cents a pound. That's a really good price point from a food co-op. And ours on the West Coast is called Azure Standard. That's the one I use. And it's less than $1 a pound. That's a good price. So if you're not on the West Coast, just search in your area for any type of like organic food co-op. That would be probably the best place to find this stuff. And what I love about it is it's super rich and has this like light nutty taste to it. It has all the amino acids and vitamins and minerals that a lot of times are not in regular bread or flour. I've even noticed if I have someone in the house who's a little bit gluten sensitive, that they will tolerate this wheat. So if you're in that boat, I think it's because it's just so high quality that the body does better with it. So that might be another thing to check out. So I'm going to go into the kitchen and I'm going to grind my wheat and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so we are done grinding the wheat, and this takes a lot of flour. I'm gonna need 11.5, and go ahead and just say 12 because you're gonna need some flour for your hands and stuff when you're kneading. So this thing is as full as I can get it, and this is what it looks like after it goes through the grain mill. I did a lot of research before I actually bought my first grain mill, and I settled on Nutrimill, and I've had it for 12 years or so, and I still totally recommend it. And then I can just start measuring out of it. Now, I rarely take my wedding ring off, but when I am doing bread dough, pizza dough, I take my ring off. So be careful with that, getting in your rings, your jewelry. The reason why you're gonna use so much flour is we're not just making one loaf of bread, we're making 3 at a time, which for a big family is like the only way to go. This will get me through like one meal at my house. So I have 3 pans. I love this stoneware from Pampered Chef, and I bought these at garage sales. I just collected them. I have a few key pieces in my kitchen that I love. You can use any bread pans though, don't worry about stoneware. I just love how even they cook, and it's the same concept as cast iron, that it's just a real strong, even heat, and stoneware is the same way. And then the bread just always comes right out. So the one thing I do before I actually put my bread dough in though is I butter them. And this is a little money saving hack. So I keep my butter wrappers, and the messier the better. I think this one was definitely from a kid. But I keep these in my fridge, and then when I need to butter anything, usually my bread pans, All right, the first thing you're gonna need is 4 cups of hot water. Now, there's some argument online about how hot to make this water. I think our hot water tank, or I think our hot water heater is set at like 115 or something. I get it pretty hot. I think hotter is better. Sometimes people think that, you know, it would kill the yeast, but I have found that the chances are greater that it's gonna be too cool and then your bread isn't gonna rise. So go ahead and go on the hotter side. You need 4 cups of hot or very warm water. Okay, and then we're gonna add to that a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And you'll notice I'm using a very large bowl. This is my largest bowl. I have 2 of these that I use for canning and things. I find these at garage sales for a couple bucks. So have some of these on hand if you're gonna be producing a lot of homemade food. Now the next thing is to add a 1/4 cup honey. I don't have a ton of honey right now, so I'm not gonna use this on my bread. And honey has fructose in it, which I try to stay away from. Also, a little tip, measure your oil first and then use the same measuring utensil for your sugary part. So then if it's honey, then the oil will just cause the honey to slip right out of that little measuring cup. I'm gonna show you a way to make it sugar-free, which is to stay with the same amount of liquid, so a 1/4 cup of water. You're just gonna add water and then 2 squirts of this is my favorite stevia extract, alcohol-free stevia. 2 squirts of that, and that will translate moisture-wise and flavor-wise will translate like honey. One of the reasons you need a sugar in your dough is so the yeast have something to eat, but I have found that this, for some reason, is just fine, and my bread rises just like it normally would. All right, so I've got my liquids in there. Now I start adding my flour, and I am gonna do this in several steps. So I'm not gonna do it all at once. And if you do this a lot, you'll just get to where you don't even need a recipe. You just remember 1/4 cup of this, 1/4 cup of this, tablespoon of this. Starts to get really second nature. And I'm just using a cheesy old hand mixer. I actually got this at my wedding, which was like 22, 23 years ago. It's a little cheesy KitchenAid thing, and the button is even missing. And I still I'm like, well, I'll just use it till it breaks, and it never dies. So, I mean, you could use a Bosch mixer, you could use a KitchenAid, whatever you have, or, you know, like a nice KitchenAid. This is not a nice one, but anything you have will work fine, even a wooden spoon. So we're gonna start with 2.5 cups of flour. Whatever flour you're gonna use, add that to your warm water, and you do want to do this fairly quickly. Like, I wouldn't walk off and go do something in the middle of this because you need that hot water to help activate your yeast. So then I'm just gonna mix this together. If you were gonna do a stand KitchenAid mixer, I would use the dough hook because, as you'll see, this is gonna get into a lot more work. Now we need to add in 1 tablespoon of yeast. If you know you're gonna be making a lot of bread over the next few months, I suggest this one from Costco. It is the Red Star brand. And again, you need 1 tablespoon. So I keep mine in the jar. I also keep mine in the refrigerator. I think that's a really good way to prolong the life of your yeast because it is a living organism. All right, and then you're gonna add 2.5 cups more of your flour. So we are at 5 cups. Now you need 1 tablespoon of salt. And I like the Celtic sea salt. I order mine from France, but regular table salt would be fine too. 1 tablespoon of salt. And the last big push for flour, we're gonna do 6.5 cups, so don't lose count. We are almost done. Once you've done that part, you're gonna move into the step where you have to knead the dough. This should only take about 15 minutes. And if it's really wet and sticky, just throw a handful of flour in there, sprinkle it in. And I just work right in my bowl. Keep my counters clean. Squeeze it, press it, flip it, turn it. You're just working that yeast throughout the whole pile of dough. And it's large because you're making 3 loaves at once, which honestly, if you're gonna go to all this trouble, like, go big or go home is my philosophy. So I wouldn't add more than a cup of flour. I think then it's gonna start to taste too much like flour when you're done. So be careful. I'm gonna show you a trick at the very end so you know how long you need to knead the dough. There's a texture that you're going for. Sometimes I only have to knead for 12 minutes or something, but it's kind of good to know so you're not wasting time or gonna end up with a bread that you don't like, right? So if this is something that your family starts to get into, making their own bread, if your kids are, say, like 9 and up, this actually is a chore that you can start to delegate. It might sound confusing the first time you're hearing this, but I assure you it becomes a lot easier to replicate, and kids can definitely take this over. So if you have teenagers in the house, they can definitely make the bread for the week. We probably make bread once or twice a week, at least once a week. And it's especially nice if the day you make bread, to plan for that first loaf of bread to be part of a meal. So with dinner or with a soup or something, because there is nothing like fresh baked bread coming right out of the oven. I think it rivals chocolate chip cookies. So that's saying something. And for those of us that are watching our sugar intake, this is a great little treat when we can't have those fresh baked cookies. I want to show you the texture that you're going for with your bread dough. And this needs to be consistent throughout. So see how this is not sticking, it's not sticking to anything. And then the biggest test for me is you gotta have a clean thumb. And if you press it in and pull it out, there's nothing stuck on your thumb. It kind of they say, I've heard other people describe it as like soft, like baby skin. But for me, I just do the whole, like the thumb press. If it comes out clean, you're ready to go. So now we're gonna make our 3 loaves. I'm gonna show you how I cut these. So I kind of make sort of a lumpy rectangle shape, and I'm gonna cut 3 sections evenly as I can. And then I take each one and I squeeze it between my 2 hands and I roll it underneath. So you're making the top of the loaf. I mean, it's not rocket science, but you're just making that rounded top underneath. It kind of looks like that. And that's your loaf. It looks small, it's gonna rise. Now, in the past when I've made bread, this part always just went on and on and on. Even with a bread machine, there would be the rise, then the second rise, then the bake. We don't do that with this recipe. It's super simplified. So you're gonna put your 3 loaves into a cold oven, but there is a little bit of warmth in the oven. It's just enough to cause the rising, the first part of the rising. You're gonna put it in there for 25 minutes, okay? After 25 minutes, you're gonna set the oven to 350. And so it's gonna preheat with the bread in there. It's going to finish that rising and then bake it. So you set the oven to 350 and then go for 40 or 45 minutes and your bread is done. So it's not this whole like checking on the rising, punching it down, coming back like busy, needing to be home and watching it all morning. No. All right, I am done. It smells amazing. My whole house smells amazing. My husband is hovering really bad and really just wants me to finish this video so he can eat.
But not ruining things.
If you want the printable recipe, head over to the blog post and I have that there for you if you would like. And if you really love these from scratch type cooking recipes, I have another one that's super popular. It's my apple pie filling. Go ahead and grab a copy of that. I'll put a link in the description below for that as well. Actually, and I will be working on making more apple pie filling tomorrow because I need to use up some apples. All right, thank you so much for stopping by. And if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I do post regularly and I share my DIY design advice and our vintage farm life. All right, take care and I'll talk to you soon.